Hello, I'm Anissa. My sister once told people I was used to scraps, and then made sure I ate Thanksgiving dinner behind her house, next to the trash bins. They called it a seating mistake. But what do you call it when your name's missing from the will, your blog gets targeted, and CPS shows up at your door, uninvited? I thought I was losing my mind, until a woman in a black Bentley pulled up and said, "We've been watching. We believe you." How did I get from leftovers to microphones? Why did my own mother say, "We can't carry her forever"? And what made my sister hate me this much? I found the gift card buried under expired coupons, old receipts, and a broken pen. It was shoved in the back of a drawer I hadn't opened since the kids started school again. The card had Darlene's perfect cursive on the back. "For emergencies, don't say I never gave you anything." That morning, Amy had woken up wheezing. Her inhaler was down to its last puff, and we were between paychecks again. I stared at that shiny plastic rectangle, hating myself for even considering it. But my daughter's breath came first. I bundled her in a hoodie 2 sizes too big and told Lyle to come with us. We didn't talk much on the drive. The cold had crept into the old car again. Heat only worked when it wanted to. And all I could think about was how badly I needed this to just work. At the pharmacy, I handed the card over with a hopeful smile I'd practiced in the rearview mirror. The cashier, a young guy with pink hair and bitten nails, slid it once, then again, then slower the third time. "I'm sorry, it's not going through." "Try it again," I said, already knowing. He did. Nothing. Amy tugged my coat. "Are we still getting lunch after?" My throat tightened. "We'll see, baby." I paid in quarters, dimes, and 2 wrinkled singles. I left with a brown paper bag and a heat in my face that had nothing to do with the wind outside. We got back in the car, and I didn't speak the entire way home. Lyle didn't ask. He just looked out the window, jaw clenched like his father's used to when he was hiding disappointment. Amy clutched her inhaler like a secret. After I tucked her into a nest of blankets on the couch, I made myself a cup of weak tea. That's when I remembered. Darlene had given me that card at her birthday brunch 3 months ago. Somewhere between the avocado toast and the endless mimosas, she had smiled that tight-lipped smile and slid it across the table like it was a check I'd never cash. "Use it when your freelancing dreams crash again," she'd said. "Or just, when you're out of gas." Her friends laughed. I laughed too. That's what I did back then. Smile, play along, pretend none of it got to me. Now I was standing in my kitchen, holding a worthless card like it was evidence in a trial no one would ever see. I snapped it in half. It made a satisfying crack, but the sting stayed. Later that night, with the kids asleep, I opened my laptop and typed. They say it's the thought that counts. But what if the thought was cruel? The next morning I was folding laundry on the couch, half watching a cartoon Amy liked and half ignoring the buzzing in my phone. It was Saturday, quiet, unremarkable. Lyle was in his room, probably sketching again, and Amy had wrapped herself in the same blanket she slept under. I unlocked my phone, just to scroll while I waited for the dryer to finish. The screen lit up with a photo. Darlene, in white lace, standing under a floral arch I recognized from our mother's backyard. I blinked. Then came another photo. Champagne flutes, gold-accented cupcakes, a sparkly banner. #second chances, #ridge vows again. I scrolled faster. There were at least 30 shots. Her smiling, him smirking, people laughing in the background. Friends, neighbors, old cousins I hadn't seen since Dad's funeral. Our mother, Lorraine, stood beside her in one photo, wiping away a tear with a tissue folded perfectly in half. Then I saw the video. It was Lorraine giving a toast. "To my beautiful daughter," she said, glass raised. "You've always made me proud. This is the life you were meant for." There was no mention of me, no tag, not a word, and the caption below one group shot read, "Everyone important was here." I froze. My chest felt hollow, like the air had turned solid inside it. Lyle walked into the room with a bowl of cereal. He glanced at the phone and saw what I was watching. He didn't ask a thing. He just turned around and walked back out. No sound, no expression. And somehow that hit harder than anything else. I almost typed out a message to Darlene, then deleted it. What was I going to say? Congrats on pretending I don't exist. I thought about last year, Thanksgiving, when she'd said, "We're keeping it small this year, just the core." I had shown up anyway with sweet potato pie and two well-dressed kids, and we'd eaten on folding chairs in the garage. That night, once the house was quiet again, I opened a new post draft. I used to think I was being forgotten, but forgetting is accidental. This was on purpose, a clean cut, sharp, practiced. I stared at the blinking cursor, then typed, "Family doesn't forget you, they erase you." The following week, while checking my inbox during a short break at work, I saw her name again. "You're invited," the subject line read, followed by a smiling photo of Darlene mid-speech, standing behind a podium draped in baby pink silk. Join us in celebrating Central Ohio's single mothers at the Ridge Foundation launch. Together, we uplift. Amy was brushing her teeth when I showed her the screen. "Are we going, Mom?" she asked, foam in the corners of her mouth. I hesitated, then nodded. "We'll go, just to see what it's about." The community center was buzzing when we got there. Rows of pastel balloons framed the entrance, and women in matching t-shirts directed foot traffic inside. No one greeted us. No one handed us a program. We slipped in like strangers at a wedding where we weren't invited. Again. Darlene stood on a stage draped in blush velvet, wearing a pristine white pantsuit and holding a mic like she was born with it. I stood in the back with Amy beside me, surrounded by polished people nodding along as my sister said things like, "Every mother deserves a seat at the table, even if they've never had one before." I moved toward one of the booths, scholarships for enrichment programs. Amy had wanted to try theater camp next summer. A woman with a clipboard smiled tightly when I asked about applying. "I'm sorry," she said softly, eyes sliding away. "This is for pre-approved families, invitation only, part of our internal outreach list." I opened my mouth, then shut it. Amy looked up at me with wide eyes. I didn't want her to see me unravel. On stage, Darlene hugged a young mom holding a toddler. Flashbulbs popped. Applause filled the room. And in all her polished, practiced language, not once did she mention my blog. The one that had covered stories like this for years. The one I had started after leaving my ex, when writing was the only thing I could do after midnight while the kids slept. As we turned to leave, Amy asked, "Are we not struggling enough?" I didn't answer. I just held her hand tighter. That night, I sat at my laptop again, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The words came easily this time. It's easy to love the idea of the poor when they're not sitting at your dinner table. It's even easier when they don't share your last name. Later that week, while sorting mail and half listening to a documentary playing in the background, my phone buzzed. Lorraine's name flashed across the screen. I didn't pick up. I wasn't ready for another round of pleasantries masked as judgment. But then, she didn't hang up. At first, it was static. Then her voice, muffled like she was on speakerphone. "I've done what I could for her, Dar, but let's be real. She's always been the problem. We can't carry her forever." I froze, phone still in my hand, pressed to my chest like a wound. Darlene responded with something I couldn't quite catch, but Lorraine's voice stayed sharp and clear. "She makes everything harder than it needs to be. Always has. I'm tired of pretending." Each word landed like a slap. I hadn't expected much from her, but even so, this cut deeper. She wasn't whispering. She wasn't careful. She was certain. Then came the part I won't ever forget. "I'll make sure she doesn't cause trouble during the holidays," she said, calm as ever. "But she's not part of our plan." Our plan. As if I was some stray piece that didn't belong on the puzzle. The sound of Lyle's footsteps pulled me back. He came into the room, took one look at my face, and said nothing. He didn't need to. He just walked over and wrapped his arms around me. I sank to the floor with him beside me, both of us silent. He was 12. He shouldn't have had to hold up his mother. My mind flashed to 5th grade, the night of the parent-teacher conference. Lorraine had promised to come. I wore the red sweater she said made me look neat, but she never showed. Later, I found out she was at Darlene's ballet recital, front row, beaming in every photo. Even now, she never picked me. Later that night, after Lyle and Amy had gone to sleep, I stared at my laptop screen. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began to move. A mother isn't just the woman who gave birth to you. She's the one who shows up. She's the one who sees you. I paused. And sometimes, she's just the one who chose someone else. Thanksgiving crept in with a gray sky and brittle wind. The streets were quiet, lined with cars parked for family dinners and crowded driveways. Mine wasn't one of them. I ironed Amy's dress while Lyle adjusted his shirt collar in the mirror. We packed up the pie she helped bake and drove in silence to Bentley Creek. As expected, no one answered the door. I knocked once, then let us in. The warmth hit like a wall, fireplace on, jazz humming low, and clinking glasses in the background. I guided the kids through the entryway, their footsteps swallowed by thick carpet. Darlene appeared in stilettos and a wine-colored silk dress. She didn't look surprised to see us. "Oh, you brought something," she said, eyeing the pie. "That's cute." Lorraine sat perched on the edge of the white couch, swirling her wine. She didn't bother to stand or even look directly at me. Just muttered, "Traffic must have been something." I set the pie on the counter, straightened up, and forced a smile. A few minutes later, Darlene clapped her hands. "So," she announced cheerfully, "we're a little tight on space this year, but don't worry, we've set you guys up out back." I blinked. "Out back?" She gestured toward the side door with a smirk. "It's private, and, well, she's used to scraps." The room hushed. Forks stopped mid-air. No one laughed. No one said a word. Lyle's jaw tensed. Amy looked up at me, confused. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I picked up the pie and nodded once. "Let's go." The back patio wasn't even set. A folding table had been dragged next to the trash bins. 2 chairs, 1 crate, paper napkins held down by a salt shaker. Amy tried to smooth her dress as she sat. Lyle just stood there, arms crossed, refusing the food. I plated things like it was a picnic and cracked a joke about alfresco dining. Neither of them laughed. I stood up and walked back inside to grab napkins. Darlene was reaching for a bottle of wine. "Next time," I said quietly, "don't pretend. Just say we're not welcome." She looked at me, raised one brow, and shrugged. What would be the fun in that? The day after Thanksgiving, I woke up with the kind of exhaustion that sits behind your eyes. I packed up the empty casserole dish I'd brought to Darlene's, untouched, of course, and told the kids I'd be back before dinner. They didn't ask where I was going. Lorraine's condo sat in a cul-de-sac that looked like it had never seen conflict. White shutters, trimmed hedges, quiet driveways. I knocked twice. She answered with that thin-lipped smile she wore like a shield. "Well, look who's here. Everything all right?" she asked, like the night before hadn't happened. "I'm just returning the dish," I said. She motioned for me to come in. "You want some wine? There's still a bottle open." "I'm good." We moved to the kitchen. She moved slowly, like the weight of appearances was getting heavier with age. I placed the dish in her sink and turned to leave, but something caught my eye. A folder spread halfway open on the dining table. Legal blue, gold-stamped, estate planning final draft. I froze. Lorraine's phone buzzed in the other room. She stepped out, muttering something about the cable bill. Alone, I leaned closer. The folder was filled with typed pages. Structured, clean, names bolded. Except mine. I flipped to the list of beneficiaries. Darlene, her husband, even a trust set up for their unborn second child. Nothing for me, not even a mention. My breath caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. She walked back in, brushing hair behind her ear like she hadn't just edited me out of her life. I held up the folder. "Why am I not in this?" She sighed, didn't meet my eyes. "Darlene has children, and she's running a business. You—" "Right, sometimes." The words didn't sting. Not anymore. They settled into the part of me already bruised. "You've made it clear where I stand," I said calmly. "Just don't expect me to keep pretending." I slid the folder back to where I found it. "I won't be at Christmas," I added, reaching for the door. She didn't argue. She just picked up her wine glass. At the doorway, I paused. "If anything else gets done behind my back," I said, "I promise it won't stay there." I didn't even get a chance to take my coat off before the knock came. Not a knock. 3 sharp raps, purposeful. I opened the door to find a woman in a navy windbreaker, clipboard in hand. Behind her, a white sedan with a state logo idled at the curb. "Miss Fulton? I'm with Child Protective Services." My stomach dropped. She stepped inside before I could say yes. We received a report of possible neglect, expired food, unsafe sleeping arrangements, verbal instability. I blinked. What? Lyle appeared from the hallway. Amy stood by the kitchen counter, clutching her cereal spoon midair. The woman scanned the living room like she already knew what she'd find. Do you mind if I take a quick look around? I nodded stiffly. What else could I do? The apartment wasn't spotless, but it was clean. Their beds were made. The fridge was stocked. Amy had colored sticky notes on the wall for her asthma reminders. Lyle's books were lined up next to the heater. She asked questions, took notes. I answered every single one, but deep down I knew this wasn't random. After she left, I sat on the couch in silence while the kids watched cartoons like nothing happened. My hands didn't stop shaking until they went to bed. That night, I logged onto my blog, hoping to lose myself in something else. Instead, I found comments. Dozens of them. Ugly ones. Stop using your kids for pity. Another single mom sob story. She's mad her rich sister won't bail her out. They were all anonymous, with usernames like TruthTeller102 and Concerned Auntie. All new, all fake. One quoted Darlene's words. She's used to scraps. Word for word. I wasn't shocked. Not anymore. I was tired of being polite about poison. So I hit record. The video was under 3 minutes. If this is supposed to scare me quiet, you picked the wrong woman. If you want war, fine, but don't pretend you're doing it out of love. By morning, the post had gone viral. Real people, women who'd been cut out, dismissed, bruised by family in pearls and power suits, began commenting, sharing, lifting me. That night, I tucked the kids in, closed the blinds, and double-checked the locks. I didn't know what they'd try next. But I knew one thing. I was ready. The week passed quietly, but not peacefully. My phone buzzed every hour. Notifications, shares, stranger support. But also silence from the people who should have said something. That was louder. Then on a gray Thursday morning, Lyle shouted from the window, "Mom, there's a fancy car outside." I looked. A black Bentley, gleaming, slow, out of place on our cracked street. The door opened. A woman stepped out. Gray suit, heels that didn't flinch on the icy curb. She carried herself like someone who never begged to be heard. "Anissa Fulton?" she asked. I nodded, guarded. "I'm Velma Whitmore. I run Reclaim Dignity. We saw your video and your blog. We'd like you to open our advocacy summit next week." I blinked. "Why me?" she smiled. "Because your story isn't rare. You just had the guts to tell it." A week later, I stood backstage in a downtown Columbus ballroom. Velvet curtains, spotlights, rows of folding chairs filled with faces like mine. Tired, curious, quietly strong. Velma introduced me. She reminded us that family doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes it means surviving anyway. Please welcome Anissa Fulton. My hands didn't shake. I spoke from the place behind my ribs, the part that had broken too many times not to harden. I told them about the gift card that didn't work, about the wedding that didn't include me, about folding chairs behind a garbage bin while people with my blood toasted champagne inside. She said I was used to scraps, I said. But here's what they never understood. Scraps don't make you small. They make you resourceful. They sharpen you. Silence. Then applause. Then a wave. Women lined up after. Some hugged me. Some whispered, "That was me. I thought it was just me." Back home that evening, I lit a candle and poured tea. Darlene's number flashed across my screen. I let it ring. A minute later, Lorraine's message popped up. "Saw the video. Hope you're well." I replied, "We're better than ever. Thanks." I put the phone down, looked around my apartment. The same space. But it felt different. I'd been pushed to the margins, and somehow, I'd built a platform there. 2 weeks after the summit, the silence didn't sting. It simply confirmed everything I already knew. One gray afternoon, I was folding laundry when a memory hit like a slow wave. It was years ago, back when Darlene had just started dating Raymond. He was charming, the kind of man who always looked for reflections of himself in every mirror and every woman's eyes. One evening, after a family dinner, he'd cornered me in the kitchen, said I looked way better than Darlene ever mentioned. I told him to back off. He smiled like I was the joke. That same night, Darlene caught me walking out of the hallway, alone. But it didn't matter. Her mind had already built the scene she needed. She never saw me the same after that. But the real wound was older. I was 21, scared, and sitting in a clinic lobby. My mother beside me, purse clenched, voice tight. "If you keep this baby," Lorraine had said, "you'll ruin your life, and mine." And just like that, my voice disappeared. I didn't speak of it for years. I had buried it under diapers, side gigs, and long shifts. Until now. That night, Amy curled up next to me on the couch. She fiddled with the hem of her pajamas, her eyes wide. "Will we ever see them again?" she asked softly. I ran my fingers through her curls. "No, baby, we don't need to." She didn't argue, just held tighter. Later, my phone buzzed again. Lorraine. One line. "Saw the article? Congratulations, I guess." I stared at it, then typed back, "I hope someday you understand what real family means." I blocked the number. Weeks passed. I mailed a check, quietly, to 2 local shelters. One was the same center I'd been turned away from. This time, no name attached. Just a note. From someone who remembers what it's like to be overlooked. Rumors started swirling. Darlene's firm lost a client after social media backlash. Raymond was spotted at a fundraiser. Alone. No ring. That wasn't my doing. Not directly. And that's the difference between revenge and truth. They didn't break me. They revealed me. And now, I write my own script. One where scraps aren't even on the menu. Before I close this chapter completely, let me leave you with this. I used to think survival was about staying quiet, staying small, staying grateful for crumbs. But what I've learned is this. Silence doesn't keep the peace. It just keeps the pain polite. Family isn't always the people who share your blood. Sometimes it's the people who show up, who see your worth, who choose you even when it's inconvenient. And sometimes, that person has to be you. So if you're watching this and feeling like the outcast in your own family, please know, being cut out doesn't mean you're worthless. Sometimes it just means you were never part of a table that deserved you. I've walked through shame, betrayal, and isolation, but I've also rebuilt, brick by brick, voice by voice. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been made to feel like the problem, just for existing? Have you ever been erased, but found your own pen and wrote yourself back in? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. Let's talk about it. And hey, if this video touched something deep in you, even just a little, comment A or tell me where you're watching from. If it didn't resonate, tell me why. I welcome all perspectives here. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story.